Yo, what is up guys, Chillfeed here and I'm back with another Borderlands 3 video, and I gotta say I'm absolutely in love right now with the new Moxxi's Heist DLC, and a lot of it has to do with the new Zane class mod and how awesome it really is. And I just want to share this with you guys with this breakdown video of all the class mods. As many of you for sure know by now, there's a new class mod for all the other characters coming with the new DLC as well, and I was able to get all of them pretty quickly since the drop rates for them seem to be insanely high. So I thought I'd go in depth with all of them, test them out and see how good they are right now and what potential they have for future builds and whatnot. So without further ado, let's jump right into what I believe to be the best new class mod for all of them, the Seein Dead class mod for Zane. As many of you know, as a Zane main myself, I was especially excited to get my hands on this one because just by the leaks before the DLC was even out, you could already tell how good this class mod was going to be. Now in my case it is the visceral Seein Dead, which gave me a 2-point boost to violent violence and 3 points to Donnybrook, which is just awesome. And what the class mod actually does is it gives Zane a chance to automatically activate all of his kill skills you've put your skill points into by just shooting your enemies, and they also gain a 25% effect bonus to make them even stronger than they were before. Meaning you already were able to stack them twice, which was kinda hard to do sometimes, to be honest, when you needed a kill for it, but now it's just easy to keep your kill skill bonuses at the maximum of 2 stacks all the time. I mean, there was a way to give you the maximum stacks guaranteed before with the capstone Seeing Red from the Hitman skill tree, which the new class mod probably refers to, where it would activate all of your kill skills by just deploying your action skills, and if you had 2 of them like almost everybody does with Zane, you had 2 stacks right away. But I think it's kind of funny that the capstone with this new class mod is now pretty much obsolete, since it is so easy to get your kill skills now by just shooting your enemies, but hey, more skill points to spend elsewhere, right? Okay, now so I was testing how fast the class mod would activate your kill skills with a fast firing illusions call where I would not have to reload, and the new revolver Lucky 7 with reloading in between firing. And as you can see, once you get all your kill skills activated and there are enemies you can shoot with almost any weapon, your kill skills will just stay active all the time, even with all the reloading in between and a relatively slow firing weapon compared to illusions call. So what are your options now when you consider the plus 25% effectiveness bonus from the class mod and an additional 25% from the skill Death Follows Close? Now you can get up to plus 30% movement speed from violent speed, plus 30% gun damage at default walk speed from violent momentum, plus 25.5% reload speed from cool hands, plus 15% lifesteal of damage dealt from salvation, plus 30% increased fire rate from violent violence, and 75% increased chance to fire an extra shot from playing dirty, up to plus 18% maximum duration of your action skills from good misfortune, plus 22.5% gun damage and 3.75 health regeneration of missing health per second from Donnybrook, 30% grenade regeneration from pocket full of grenades, a 45% chance for your digiclone to throw a grenade, and your enemies can now create a cryonova that does a little more damage, but best served code is still not worth 5 points, so I'd say don't bother. But all the other options are just amazing in my opinion. So I was testing this thing out with my Calm, Cool and Collected cryo build and just a kip's worth, which you can get from Voten in the takedown event. And as you can see, it did an amazing job at mobbing. The speed you can get with this class mod now is insane, even way better than before. The damage output is now finally good enough for Mayhem 4 without the need to have the most optimal gear or tactics. And really the only downside of this class mod is that you have to own the DLC to get your hands on it. Other than that, it's, like I said, the perfect class mod for Zane in my opinion. Moving on from there to another class mod that to me on paper really looked promising, but in practice so far turns out to be a little underwhelming. This is the Green Monster class mod for Moze that gives Moze's weapons bonus corrosive damage depending on how long you hold down the trigger. The thing that I immediately thought was triple or even quadruple elements if you can get the right anointments, making it possible to deal corrosive damage from the class mod, incendiary damage from her skills, something like shock damage from the weapon itself, and maybe bonus radiation or cryo damage after your action skill ends from an anointment. And this, in my opinion, sounds amazing and like a lot of fun, but after testing the class mod I found out that the bonus corrosive damage starts out pretty low and caps out relatively early. For example, I was using a level 50 shock phaser and the corrosive damage started out at about 20 damage per bullet for a phaser compared to the base damage of about 835 on a body shot at first is not a lot. The time it takes to get a maximum bonus damage is also different from gun to gun. I was using a warlord and it took just about 15 seconds to get to a maximum damage at around 810, and the infinity took roughly 14 seconds to get a maximum damage at 679. What's nice though is that it starts dealing corrosive damage pretty early and goes up relatively fast, even though it takes about 20 seconds to get up to the maximum when shooting a phaser. I mean, that's a lot of shooting you have to do, and remember, once you just let go of holding mouse 1, R2, RB or whatever you use for shooting, the damage starts from the beginning when you start shooting again. The damage number at the maximum, which was at around 970 for the phaser, seems to sometimes scale to the weapon and is the exact same damage as your weapon would normally deal. So that's basically twice the damage if you can manage to get the bonus corrosive damage to a maximum. But sometimes, like for example the Infinity Pistol that did over 1000 damage per shot, the maximum bonus corrosive damage was, like I said, at only 679, so I'm not quite sure how the damage is calculated. In practice, you're pretty much limited to weapons with a lot of bullets in your magazine to get the maximum potential out of the class mod, and you can obviously not use anything other than full auto weapons. For shotguns like the Brainstormer for example, the bonus damage goes up a lot faster, from 47 after just the second shot to 941 damage for the 13th and last shot, but you're gonna have to restart every time after a reload, so not great in my opinion. Before knowing that the damage bonus caps out pretty early, I thought the Infinity would finally become amazing with this class mod, since you can shoot this thing forever basically, but as you can see in the gameplay, this is not the case at all. And also the other weapons I was hoping to now be great, like the phaser or warlord with high capacities, fast fire rates, multiple elements, just still aren't viable enough for Mayhem 4 with this class mod. So in this early stage of testing, this class mod doesn't seem to be the game changer like the Zane class mod is, but still I think it's a nice little bonus damage to have if you can manage to hold down the trigger long enough before you're getting hand cramps. Okay, now I think we can all agree that in terms of damage and especially crit damage, fadeaway has been pretty much the meta since day one for Flag, and even after the recent buffs to the pets and everything, I think that is still the case, and then Gearbox decides to just give us something to increase our damage output with a class mod that seems to be perfect for fadeaway again after nerfing almost everything they could to make the fadeaway not as crazy as it once was. Anyway, now let's find out if the new class mod makes up for all the nerfs in the past. The name of the class mod is the Teething Stackpot, and just as the name suggests, you can gain stacks for increased critical hit damage for every critical hit you land in a row. But if you should just land a body shot or miss a shot completely, you lose all of your stacks and the crit damage goes down to the base crit damage. But of course with fadeaway, and especially Guerrillas in the Mist, as long as you hit your shots you will always deal crit damage and therefore increasing your stacks, which again on paper sounds pretty awesome, and to be honest in practice it really is awesome. Maybe not as awesome as I thought it was before, but let me explain. So obviously you want to go with a weapon that deals either high crit damage or a weapon that lets you consistently deal consecutive critical hits, or even both. So I started testing a bunch of weapons on the Handsome Jack dummy on Sanctuary 3, starting with the Unforgiven just to see how high I can go with the damage numbers on it and how many shots it would take me to get to a maximum. So on my first shot I did 34,000 damage on a headshot, increasing by 1 to 3,000 each consecutive consecutive headshot I land, but keep in mind that I had the unblinking eye augment equipped that increases your critical hit damage by 75% per hit on the same target, up to 225% before it resets. So with that in mind, it takes about 100 shots to get to a maximum of 142,000 damage from a single shot of an Unforgiven. I mean, 142,000 damage is definitely a nice number for a revolver that gets up to 245,000 damage while in the normal fadeaway, which is, by the way, just a 100% damage increase instead of 200%, but another bug, whatever, I guess. Anyway, it's also almost impossible to land 100 consecutive critical hits with one weapon without missing just one shot, especially not with the iron sights of an Unforgiven and the fast movement of your enemies in this game. There's a nice way to speed things up a little bit to get a higher stack count for more crit damage, and that is just to switch to a fast firing and accurate weapon. In my case, I used the Lucian's Call, which I know is not the most accurate, but it worked fine on the dummy and for the purpose of this video. And then I just switched to a slow firing weapon with high critical hit damage, like the Unforgiven, or even a Monocle for example, and you'll just keep the stacks. This can work wonders sometimes on the Monocle that goes up from 42,000 damage on the first shot to 221,000 after just 6 shots, and even 523,000 with the OM Amp Shield equipped, which is just completely insane and will one-shot every mob enemy you can possibly think of. Like I said though, the problem with this class mod is that you will be playing so cautiously to not lose your stacks because it is so easy to lose them, and I can almost guarantee you will try to not lose them, at least when you first start playing with it. And to be fair, if you want to reach those high damage numbers with slow firing weapons like the Monocle or Unforgiven, you have to play overly cautious to not miss a shot, which in most cases is impossible, especially if your enemies come rushing at you. Even in boss fights like the Grave Ward, it's pretty hard to keep your stacks high or even come close to a maximum stacks, so I suggest when playing with it, don't focus too much on getting the highest possible stack and just take the damage increase by playing the game normally. Okay, but now let me give you an example of something I found out while I was testing. I tested the Maggie's crit damage at maximum stack, which was at around 112,000 damage. Now let's say you are at very high stacks for the Maggie and deal just about 60,000 damage per crit, which is not bad at all. Then you activate your fadeaway with Guerrillas in the Mist and increase your damage to 225,000 per crit during your action skill, which is awesome for a fast firing revolver. But it doesn't even end there. Some of the bonus damage carries over even after your fadeaway ends, meaning I dealt about 175,000 per crit even if the maximum damage was 112 damage before. And the same thing applies to other weapons. As you can see here with the Unforgiven, I deal 144,000 damage at max stacks, activate fadeaway and deal about 255,000 damage, and now after fadeaway ends, I still deal about 210,000 damage for a few shots until it goes down to about 144,000 again. Getting back to the Maggie though, with this class mod in particular, the weapon got even better I believe. Just look at how I'm melting the Grave Rod on Mayhem 4 after I gained just a few stacks. It has a fast rate of fire, multiple bullets per shot that all deal crit damage, which makes it easier to gain stacks, especially on larger enemies, which makes it perfect for some boss fights. So to sum it up, how good is the class mod? I would say it's pretty good, even if you can't get close to maximum damage sometimes. A critical hit damage increase of just a few thousand for just 2 consecutive crits is still a damage increase I'll gladly take, even though I don't suggest going for higher stacks only and messing up your gameplay flow sometimes. It's still fun to go for consecutive crits and be rewarded for it. The last class mod I have to go over is one where I don't really know if I should be upset about it or not, is the Golden Rule class mod for Amara. Given that Amara already has so many options and build variety, I'm not really mad that this new class mod turns out to be quite underwhelming, at least in my opinion. First of all, its ability to increase Amara's cooldown rate whenever she takes damage for a few seconds is not really needed in this game, since the cooldown rates in Borderlands 3 work in a way that they don't really stack with different bonuses, or at least only with really diminishing returns, or maybe it's just as bugged as many other things currently in the game. You will see what I mean when I show you the footage. At first I was testing my cooldown time for the regular phase cast, which normally would be at 28 seconds until you can use it again, but with the Guardian rank bonus of about 10% faster cooldown rate and the Guardian perk topped off to further decrease the cooldown when your shields are full, it was at about 11.29 seconds. And after that I went ahead and put 5 points into Restless, which should increase my cooldown rate by 25%, but as it turns out it did basically nothing to my cooldown, or at least it was far from reducing it by 25%, since it was still at about 10.36 seconds. Now all of these cooldowns are with the Guardian rank bonus of 10.29% increased cooldown rate and the Guardian perk topped off. So I wanted to see how much slower the cooldown is when at least the topped off bonus doesn't apply. So I went ahead and grabbed a Painless Power to damage myself and lose some shields from the beginning of my action skill, and it then was at about 21.75 seconds, which is a whopping 10 seconds slower. Now let's see what the Golden Rule class mod does if I choose to damage myself to not receive any bonuses from topped off. Wait, 22 seconds? That's literally worse. Okay, so maybe like Moxxi said in this video, I need to use a sellout and apply 2 elements at once to myself, since it seems to not work with the Painless Power right now. Okay, so I got down from 21.75 seconds to 19.03 seconds, which is an insane 2.72 seconds. But maybe this works better in practice, like the legit way when your enemies are shooting at you. So let's test this thing out in the slaughter shaft. Okay, it's at 19.39 and I think you guys know what I'm getting at. And yes, I have seen Moxxi's video about it and I know that in some way you can make this thing work by shooting yourself and doing some other stuff, and I will link that video down in the description below so you can check it out. But for me, that's not really my cup of tea, so if you are like me, you are not going to enjoy this class mod. Even if you can make this method of Moxxi's video work, it's still quote unquote just a quicker cooldown of your action skill with some benefits here and there, but I don't think it's worth going for. Especially not if you have a Face Lurker class mod, which even though it was nerfed is still better than this one in my opinion, and the Driver class mod, which is still great. So I don't think there's any incentive to use the Golden Rule over those other 2 class mods. Anyway guys, this video took way longer than I thought it would, so I hope you still enjoyed the video. Maybe some of you even made it to the end, and if you did, why not leave a like on this video right now? Let me know down in the comment section if you are still here watching. Thank you so much if you did, and with that being said, I see you in my next one.